Well, good afternoon and welcome to
Good afternoon.
PBALC's, another of PBALC's Literacy Speaking live stream. Today, we are excited to welcome author Kim Fay as she discusses her lovely book, Love and Saffron. We are so happy to have you, Kim, and we're
Oh, thank
delighted to discuss this lovely book about friendship and connection because we definitely need
you.
that, especially
Yes, we
with the
do.
recent
Yes,
events.
we
We
do.
definitely need a good dose of something nice and
Yeah,
wonderful like your book. So
thank
please
you.
introduce yourself to our viewers and tell
All
us a
right.
little bit about yourself.
Okay. Oh, that's a big ask. Hi, I'm Kim Fay. I'm the author of Love and Saffron, and I'm coming to you here from Los Angeles, where it's very, very hot. Um, Golly, what do I say? I've been a writer since I was about 12 years old.
Mhm.
So there's that. I was like, it's such a big,
It's
big
12 years old. Wow.
12 years old, I started writing. Yeah. Um, and this is my Love and Saffron's my second novel. There's a new one that just came out that is a kind of a continuation of that story.
Okay.
Um, and
Wonderful.
I have a dog named Mabel. How's that?
Well, what inspired you to write specifically Love and Saffron? Uh,
Yeah,
because I know
I
it's
mean,
written a little bit differently. It's written as in letters between
mhm,
friends. So what inspired you to write
mhm.
a book specifically in that way?
Okay, I'll kind of hit two things here. There's the style of the book and then also the content of the book. And the style,
Mhm.
as Alba mentioned, is epistolary. So it's a book written entirely in letters. And I mean, I love letters. I miss letters. I miss that era of,
Mhm.
I'm old enough to have been writing letters well into my 20s to friends and family, and I miss that. But it's almost a little bit of a love letter to a friend of mine, Janet Brown, who she's an essayist, and she and I both worked at a bookstore in Seattle in the 90s. And I went to teach English in Vietnam, and she went to teach English in Thailand. And we started corresponding. And our correspondence has lasted over the years. And I'm just fascinated by how much of life can be revealed in letters and
Mhm.
how intimate letters are, even though you're not in the same room with a person.
Yeah.
And so I really loved the idea of exploring a friendship between two women through letters. And then the story itself actually came to me uh, right at the start of the pandemic. I was working on a completely different novel
Mhm.
when when kind of Love and Saffron just popped into view and said, pick me."
Yeah.
and it was written as a gift to two friends during the pandemic. It wasn't written as a novel to be published. It was written as kind of, Alba, like you said, now we were also disoriented and life was so, we just didn't know what was happening, and all of our worlds were disrupted. And I wanted to write something very small. I mean, I was very specific. I wanted it to be read in an afternoon, and I wanted it to just kind of provide an escape and some comfort.
Mhm.
And so that was the the I don't want to say inspiration because that's not the actual story, but that was what prompted me to write this novel.
Well, and back to, writing letters. I remember
Mhm.
in high school, we had to
Yeah.
get pen pals
Yes.
from different countries. And
Yeah.
I always looked forward like to
I
writing and then them
know.
and getting a letter from them. Like they could tell
Yeah.
me I had a pen pal from, I think, Denmark, and then I had one from Spain. And
I know.
she would send me and she would tell me about Spain, about her family. She would send me.
Mhm.
I always looked forward. I was like, I'd run to the,
The
mailbox to get,
mailbox.
I was like, oh, to see what she said, and then I later in
Mhm.
life I got pen pals from other parts of
Yeah.
the United States,
Yep.
and I just looked forward to them every day, and writing to her to tell her, oh, even the mundane things. I went to the library. I rode my bike around the neighborhood. I
Yeah.
was like, just, and it was just so, I guess, being able to just tell people about
Yeah.
about your life. Even it's not the same as a texting or
It's
email.
not. It is not at all. But I think, Alba, you hit on the big thing that really fascinates me about letters is everyday
Mhm.
life. You
Yeah.
would think because now when if somebody writes a letter, it's such a big deal. But back in
Uh-huh.
the day when we wrote letters, it was whatever you were doing right in that moment.
Yeah.
That's what you're writing your letter about. Even if it's not something exciting, it's riding your bike or whatever you do every day.
Mhm.
And that was another thing to capture in the book was what are these women's daily lives like?
Mhm.
What are
Yeah,
their
and
lives
and
like?
I don't want to give the book away, but at the beginning it just says, the first lady that wrote is like,
Mhm.
I don't want to bore you with just mundane things, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and the other lady's like, no, I love hearing about what you're
yeah,
doing from day to day, going to, marketplaces,
yeah,
and so um we
yeah.
don't get enough of that anymore because of social
No,
media. You can post if you're out hiking, you can just
I
post it directly,
I know.
and
And people, I
so
mean, it gets a little too mundane sometimes. It's like,
mhm,
okay, I love the flowers in your garden, but do we need to see all of them every day?
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's a completely different. It's also, I think, because letters are tactile.
mhm,
You're actually holding a piece of paper that the person who wrote to you held and
right,
either put a pen or whether it was a typewriter, but they held that piece of paper and now you're holding that piece of paper. And there's something really personal about that that I
mhm.
love. I
And, they said
absolutely
that
love.
the, ebooks were gonna replace, physical books,
Yeah.
and I tried ebooks, and I just didn't
Yeah.
I like the feeling of switching
Same.
pages and holding a book, it's the
I
same thing like
know.
you said with letters.
But yeah, and I work with a bunch of young girls in a
Mhm,
volunteer program. They've all told me they prefer a physical book. And
mhm,
they're techno kids, they were
mhm.
raised on the internet and raised on texting and raised on all of that. They love holding a physical book.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
have an older friend too that, she's in her 70s, 80s, and she
Yeah.
always writes me letters and sends me
You're
letters.
so lucky.
And because that's how she grew up. She didn't
Yeah.
grow up. She sends me emails, but they're really short, and her
Yeah.
letters are longer. And
Yeah.
also, she also got me into also just sending postcards again. And like, every time I
Yes.
travel somewhere, she's like, "Send me a postcard," and I'm like,
I know.
"Okay." So I
I
send her a postcard of where I'm
know.
traveling instead of sending her pictures and things like
Yep.
that. I send her postcards, and they're right in the postcard. It's like, "Oh, we went to Austin, the capital. Here's postcard."
Yeah.
So,
We saw we ate this or just one line of what they
uh-huh.
did. Yeah.
And
No, I
so,
do. I have a young friend who sends me postcards everywhere she goes, and I love
uh-huh.
it so much.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
nice receiving them, right?
Yeah.
And so, so the two main characters are writing back and forth, Imogen
Mhm.
and Joanne.
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Joan, yeah.
or Joan, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How did you develop those two characters? Did you base them on somebody in your life, or how did you come up with those two
Yeah.
characters?
So, I guess I should give a little context for the novel here. The novel is about a young food writer in the 1960s, a newspaper writer living in Los Angeles. She's in her
Mhm,
20s. She writes a fan letter to a magazine columnist who lives on Camino Island in the Pacific Northwest, who is older, who is in her late 50s. So we have this fan letter is sent and it starts this correspondence going back and forth.
mhm,
And the character of Joan, who is the young food writer in Los Angeles, her career is very much based on my friend Barbara Hansen, who
okay.
was a young food writer in Los Angeles in the 1960s. Um, I had met her about 12 years before the book was written, and I was absolutely fascinated by her because she was writing about international foods when nobody else in Los Angeles was doing that in the mainstream press.
Mhm,
She wrote for the LA Times, and she's very unassuming woman, but she would go anywhere in the city and poke into anybody's kitchen and then
mhm,
write about it. And she just loved all food, and she couldn't understand why everybody wasn't doing this. And so I really wanted to capture her curiosity and also that time period when so many Americans had no idea of flavors outside their own little cultural bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Because Los Angeles, has always just been such a diverse place, and so
Mm-hmm.
which means it has a huge diversity of food. And it was really fun to have this character explore that and then share it with the woman up in the Pacific Northwest who is loosely based on my great aunt, but also based on most of the women I knew from that era whose lives were very contained.
Mm-hmm.
We had, when I write about, you know, things like Emmy up in the Pacific Northwest tasting garlic or tasting these things, the book said in the 60s, but I mean, I grew up in the 80s and I didn't taste those things up in Washington. I
Mm-hmm.
had never, I'd never even heard of sushi. I have no idea what that was until I was an adult. And most flavors, it wasn't until I left the country and then moved to Los Angeles where I tasted all these different things. So it was fun to have this young woman introducing this older woman to all these new experiences through food.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's so relatable too, because like my friend that that writes me letters, and so
Uh-huh.
she's older, and she we try to have lunch at somewhere new, and a new restaurant, a new
Uh-huh.
um uh
Oh, I
dish,
love
and
this.
she loves it. She was like, I love having these lunches with you because I get to experience new things. And I'm like,
Oh, I,
"Oh, that's so great." And I think um the she introduced
mhm.
they introduced each other to new things
Okay.
in their culture, I think.
It seems like
Your
you're Joan
characters.
and your
Yeah.
friend is Amy right now.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Yeah.
you have a very similar relationship. I
Yeah,
love
somewhat
that.
similar, but I've
I
had
love that.
relationships like that, throughout my
Yeah,
years, but
yeah,
I just, chose my friend Sharon as somebody that I'm like, oh, I can relate to that because
yeah,
we have kind of
yeah.
somewhat similar relationship, but they introduce each other to different things, and that was so
They do.
great through their
They
letter
do.
writing.
They do. And one thing I really wanted, it was so important to me in this book that no matter what happened in the women's lives, because a lot
Mhm.
happens, not only do they introduce and share, there's no point at which they don't support each other.
Mhm.
They support each other. I mean, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing, but it's about supporting somebody you love. And I really wanted to capture the way that women can do that for one another in this book. Um, and that was a big part of the storyline and how it progresses.
Well, and and I also, yeah, I love that they supported each other even to the
Yeah.
very end too. Because I don't want to give too much of the
I
book
know
away, but
I know it's like you have
it's
to
like
talk around certain
they
things.
both go through some difficult times, and they write each other about that, and they support each other
Yeah.
through those difficult times. But um it also, so I love that part of the book too, but I love the part where they're introducing each other to different things, and just the detail that you put into their writings, that
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, I want to go to LA to try all these things. It was like, oh man, I want to go there. I don't know if you watch a series called Lincoln Lawyer. It's
Oh,
on
I'm
Netflix,
familiar with it, but I
but
haven't watched it.
it's a very interesting series. But one thing that I love about that series is that they go around LA and just try different
Yeah.
foods, and I'm like, oh man, that makes me want to go to
Oh,
LA to try
interesting.
all
Now
these
you've got
different
me
restaurants and
intrigued.
things like that. And
Well, yeah,
because
it
there,
is just yeah.
it's a lo- a, a, a firm, a lawyer's firm,
Yeah.
but the characters are all obsessed with food, and so they're
Okay,
always
I did
trying
not
different
know
things
this. I
to
knew
eat.
it was a John Grisham novel, I think, and that, but I did
Hmm.
okay. Now
Yeah.
that's what next on my list because I want to see these people
That's
go around. I mean,
interesting.
LA, you just can't turn around without hitting some not like new fancy restaurant, but
Hmm.
just a flavor you've never tasted before
Hmm.
or some new food experience.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just
So, what do you hope is what do you hope is the biggest takeaway from not only Love and Saffron, but from any of your stories? What do you
mhm.
want people to have? What's the biggest takeaway you want people to have?
Well, both Love and Saffron and Kate and Frida, like as I said, they're connected. Kate and Frida, Frida's the daughter of Joan in Love and Saffron. So it's
Hmm.
her story in the 90s. And both of these stories are about friendship. And both of these stories are about the characters in each of the novels go through extremely dark experiences, as we all do in life.
Hmm.
And I think that both of these books really are about how we find the light. How, no matter how dark things get, how do we find the light? How do we still experience joy? And that it's okay to do that.
Hmm.
That's part of the bigger picture of what we are all going through. And so I would love readers to take away um, knowing that or feeling that there's a way, no matter what's happening, to experience that. And then also when we're going through the real beautiful parts of life, to celebrate it, to
Hmm.
stop, to be grateful for it, to reflect on it, and to just be thankful to the universe for these moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And man, do we need this book right now, right? Because
We
like you said, the
I've received
friendship
many messages
connection.
from people thanking me for the book at this particular point in our
Yes.
country's history. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
because like you said, if you can there we posted PBLC posted um posts on Wednesday, and we were talking about like through all this ugliness, there's still you
Yeah,
can lean on friendships, you can lean on connections, you can lean there's still beauty in this world.
there is.
And we
Yeah.
can't lose hope.
We can't. It's like Margaret Renkl, she's the nature writer, and I was just reading a passage in one of her books, and it's about all the poisonous creatures that are in her garden. And she wrote at the very well, she wrote about all of the things, their purpose, but then she wrote at the very end, no creature is all poison. And I
Hmm.
just have to remind myself of that sometimes and remember um, that it's still our responsibility to continue to reach out, to try and connect and
Yes.
find just find that connection.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
can you read
Yes,
a selection for our
I
readers?
can. All righty, here. Get my readers on. There we go. So I'm going to read just the first two letters from the novel. I think that's probably easiest because anything out of context would be a little confusing. So I'm just going to start you with the two letters, and the I'll just jump in. So October 1st, 1962, Los Angeles, California. Dear Mrs. Fortier, I hope this letter finds you well. For that matter, I hope it finds you, since I'm sending it to Northwest Home and Life magazine, where I so enjoyed your recent tale about digging for clams. I laughed out loud at your smug heron and briny crown of kelp. I admire women who do not care if they look foolish in front of others, even though I'm not one of them. I'm a dedicated reader of Letter from the Island, and I send my congratulations for your 10-year anniversary as its author. I have known it from the beginning when I was 17. Mother loves her magazine subscriptions, and every month, as soon as they arrive, she folds back the pages to her favorite columns. The first two she reads are always yours and Gladys Tabor's Butternut Wisdom in Family Circle. I prefer yours. It makes me feel like I'm having a conversation with a good friend, and your enthusiasm for life has taught me to be more aware of my own world around me, and especially the outdoors. Believe it or not, Los Angeles has much to offer in the way of natural beauty if you pay close attention. I notice you have written about mussels a few times, but you only ever mention cooking clams. I recently learned a creative mussels recipe from a French woman I met on a voyage to the Far East. I am enclosing a packet of saffron from that voyage. It is my small way of thanking you for Letter from the Island. For steamed mussels, In a stock pot, add a generous pinch of saffron, coarse chopped garlic, and parsley to a half cup melted butter. The red enamel pot you mentioned in your column about racing Dungeness crabs. The one with the pockmark from your niece's Red Ryder BB gun will do perfectly. If you can't find fresh garlic, shallots can be substituted, but in my opinion, without fresh garlic, the dish isn't worth making. The Frenchwoman told me the addition of a cup or so of white wine is considered standard for this broth, but she prefers vermouth. I agree with her. It gives the dish a crisp botanical flavor, and I can save my Chablis for drinking with my meal. Your not so secret admirer, Miss Joan Bergstrom. October 12th, 1962, Camano Island, Washington. Dear Miss Bergstrom, greetings from the eye of the storm. Typhoon Frida churned to life a few days ago in the far reaches of the Pacific and got it into her stormy head to roar in our direction. I wonder, is she still a typhoon once she lands on American shores? Meteorological semantics isn't my area of expertise, and my trusty Britannicas are safely hunkered down on the shelves at home. Francis and I came out to the cabin for the Columbus Day weekend to pick mussels and try the saffron you so thoughtfully sent. Instead, we've been battening our hatches. Apologies for the tottery penmanship. I didn't bring my typewriter with me since my intention was to write to you next week after I made your recipe with great success. Not only do I not mind looking foolish, I'm an optimist. Unfortunately, we didn't collect a single mussel, and I'm writing by the light of the kerosene lantern because the power has gone out. I'm writing rather than pacing because my pacing was driving Francis crazy. He finally told me to do something to take my mind off the storm. Easier said than done. This afternoon, the sky turned black and filled with spectral yellow streaks, and now it feels like our wood-clad cabin will wash away at any minute. This isn't an unreasonable fear, considering its old wartime housing that we had floated to its present location 4 years ago on a barge from a naval shipyard down west of Seattle. I've never experienced gales like this before, or maybe I have, but the windstorm of 1934 came at the height of the Depression, when I was a weary housewife feeling 1,000 years old rather than the 31 I actually was, and my larder was down to a questionable jar of dried beef. A house blown off its foundation seemed like the least of our worries during those bleak times. I hope you don't find it insulting that I'm using you for my mandated distraction. I do realize I'm rambling. I was pleased to receive the saffron, which I read about in an article by Elizabeth David. I think it was Gourmet. Does she write for Gourmet? Or maybe it was in one of MFK Fisher's delectable books. But now that I think about it, perhaps Freya Stark mentioned saffron in her writings about Persia. Rambling indeed. Francis calls it my specialty and says if I were paid for it, we'd be rich. Anyhow, at your mention of your Far East voyage, I immediately pictured you tall and most certainly elegant, draped in silk, perched on a camel in a spice bazaar. My fascination with National Geographic gives me a vivid imagination. I'm not an adventurous like you, though. My spirit and appetite wander extravagantly through the pages of books and magazines, but my body and stomach stick close to home with few exceptions, Canada and Glacier National Park, and a long ago visit to San Francisco where I enjoyed Cipino. I'm positive I'm not spelling that correctly. At the old Clam House. I close with a heartfelt thank you for your intriguing gift and generous words about my column. I'm always surprised when I receive a fan letter since I associate them with movie stars and grand authors like Edna Ferber and Pearl S. Buck. I've never considered myself a professional writer. Occasional vignettes in a garden club newsletter were seen by a former high school classmate in a position of editorial power, and voila. For a decade now, Letter from the Island has been a monthly staple in Northwest home and life. I send additional gratitude for giving me good reason to put pen to page while the wind whips, the windows shudder, and the roof shakes. With warm regards, Mrs. Imogene Fortier. P.S. My thanks as well to your mother for bringing my column into your home, and as a result, your gracious letter.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
And like I said, I don't want to give a lot away, but I love
I know.
how they're like, P.S. P.S.
P.S. There's a lot of
as you read.
PSs in the book. I had so much fun with the PSs, and my editor loved them, so I think we got a little PS crazy at times.
So let me ask you, why did you choose the specifically saffron as the spice to that
These are
flavor?
these are always these questions you get asked when you're doing a talk like this, and you have to kind of make up an answer because there wasn't a specific reason. I think I was trying to find something that, was exotic that Joan would know, but that Imogene wouldn't know.
I see.
And so it was just it was s- something that was interesting that could be incorporated into the story. And
Hmm.
when I say chose, nothing else came. I mean, that just came to me. So it wasn't as if I went through a big long list of herbs and spices and thought, what could I have her send? But the second I, grabbed onto that, it, it just wove so naturally into other places in the story as well.
Hmm. And just me hearing you read that passage made me think of another. There's so many takeaways that you can get from this book, but
Yeah.
another takeaway is that you don't have to travel the world to be adventurous or have adventures, right?
That is so true. And I mean, I think that was one of the things I thought about with the character of Emmy, because I mean, all of my great aunts and my grandmothers, they lived, they didn't adventure out from the Pacific Northwest. I mean, the
Hmm.
places that they went to were within their radius. And I think it was not that nobody wanted to, but it just didn't occur to them that they could.
Hmm.
But they all lived such big lives where they lived. So it
Hmm.
wasn't as if their lives were small because they never left their homes. Um, and so that was something that was really fun to capture with Emmy as well, is how are you living richly and living big, even though you may never venture. My Grammy, I don't know if she ever ventured beyond her 400, population 400 town of Carnation.
Uh-huh.
I know she went into Seattle and things, but she was a homebody, but her life was incredibly full.
Well, Imogene's life was incredibly full, right? Even though
Yeah,
she says that, oh, I haven't traveled here and haven't traveled there.
yeah,
Um, Joan felt like her world was very
yeah,
adventurous.
very, yeah. And
Mhm.
I think that was the nice thing, is maybe something that Emmy couldn't see about her own life, Joan
Mhm.
was able to show her, and vice versa.
Yes,
There were things in Joan's life that she really didn't see, and Imogene opened her eyes to what was in her own world.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
what other projects?
Okay.
You said that you're working on other projects. What other projects or books are you currently working on right now that
Okay,
you look
so I
forward
am working
to?
on the 3rd book in the trilogy. So, we've got Love and Saffron, and
Mhm.
then we've got here's Kate and Frida, so this is Joan's daughter. So,
Okay,
the
I'll need to
3rd
get that one next.
Yeah, so this is Joan's daughter, and she corresponds with a bookseller, and this takes place, she's in Paris and Kate's in Seattle, and this is in the early 1990s, because it
Okay.
was the last place I could set a book where they could still write letters to one another.
Uh-huh.
So the 3rd book comes closer to the present day, and it's interesting because I thought it was going to be Joan in her 80s and Kate and Frida in middle age. But as I'm writing, Joan's granddaughter keeps shoving Kate and Frida out of the story to the point where they're not in the story. I mean, poor Kate and Frida, because they were going to go on about what middle age is like and how life has changed and all of this. And now they're sitting on the periphery, where Joan's daughter Ramona, who's 19, has jumped in, and it's the story of a grandmother and a granddaughter. So, which
Uh-huh.
is, I had such precious relationships with both of my grandmothers. I mean,
Mm.
they were both best friends in different ways. And so the idea of being able to explore that, and it will be an epistolary novel. I've come up with a trick to make it a book and letters again. But it will be the story of the relationship of these 2 young women at very different ends of the generation gap.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be that's such an interesting read.
Yeah. Thank
Because
you.
you talk about all this disconnection between the generations.
Yeah.
Where like, oh, boomers don't understand Gen X, and it's like,
Mhm.
I
Yeah, and so Joan will be, I think, the
I always
great
tell people I've
generation.
worked with really great boomers. I've
Yeah.
worked with really bad boomers. I've worked with really great millennials. I've worked with
Same.
has nothing to do with your generation. It's
It
just
doesn't, and I wanna bring out the beauty of the connections in those relationships because
Mhm.
I know people who have them. I've had them. Barbara Hanson, who Joan was based on, she passed away last year. She was 90. So she was well, I can't do math, but she was a lot older than me. And but I've also had, like I said, when I was, when I was in my teens, my relationships with my grandparents, and I just want to capture
Mhm.
what really is there and what we may not be looking at all the time, but those connections between and the commonalities
Yes,
between
commonalities
people who are, Joan and her granddaughter are 60 years apart. So I want to find those common spaces.
and learn from each other.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
can learn so much from a boomer. You know, oh, they
Yeah,
call
I mean, I
boomers
have learned I volunteer
experience.
with young people, and I've learned so much from them, probably more than they've learned from me.
I doubt that, Kim. I doubt that.
Thank you.
Well, where can people get information about your books? We'll also share it afterwards on our live streams in the comments as well.
Yeah, I mean, probably the best place is my website, which is just
Hmm.
kimfaybooks.com. I have some fun things. I have a fun page with real life photos that from Love and Saffron.
Hmm.
So that the cabin is a real cabin, Emmy's cabin. So that's there. And I've got pictures of who the characters were based on. So there's some fun things there.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
because we always ask all of our authors that
Mhm.
we feature, and because we love PBALC reading, we
Yeah.
think reading is an important part of learning a new language and improving your literacy. What are
Mhm.
you currently reading, and what are some recommendations?
All right. I'm glad you guys prepared me for this one because this is the worst question an author gets because you always go blank. And it seems awful because you're always reading something amazing and then you just completely blank out and feel like an absolute idiot. So I am prepared and I've got props. So I'm going to do nonfiction first. And I just read this.
Perfect.
I loved this is called Raising Hair.
Uh huh.
I love this book so much. It is the story of a woman. She's a political consultant
Uh huh.
and the pandemic shuts her work world down and she has a small cottage in England, that she's had that she probably will where she'll retire someday. So she hunkers down in the cottage and she rescues a baby hare, not a rabbit, as I learned, a hare. And this it could be so boring, but it is over the course of the next 2 years, her relationship with that animal, because hares can't be domesticated.
Uh
And
huh.
so she doesn't turn it into a pet. She cohabits with it essentially. And it's what she learns about herself, what she learns about how she looks at the world and how much she really didn't pay attention to the world. And
Mm.
it's incredibly beautiful. And I do like to give a spoiler for people because I find books like this, I get concerned. The hare does not die at the end. These
Okay.
animal books, the animal always dies. And you're just like,
Mhm.
okay, I love this book so much. And now I'm really sad.
Yeah.
So, but it's this woman's relationship with this animal. And I just found it incredibly beautiful. And I've been reading a lot of fiction lately, so it's hard for me to pick one, but I want to recommend Bug Hollow, which is by Michelle Hunavan. And I'm a fan of Michelle. She lives here in LA, but I really think this is her best book yet. It's the story of a family, and I'm not giving anything away to say up front that their son passes away. And the story is told over the course of many years on both sides of this event, but each chapter is from a different family member. So it's very much this really incredibly well done mosaic where the pieces overlap slightly in each chapter. And by the time you're done with the book, you have this whole beautiful quilt of a story.
Wow.
And she's done it. And it's a beautiful book. It's about Altadena, where we had the fires this year. And
Mhm.
it was finished just before Michelle's house burned down. Michelle's a longtime
Mm.
Altadena resident. She was born there. And so it's also a love letter to this place without intending to be, because
Mm.
she always sets her books in Altadena, most of them. So I recommend it. It was one of those books that I read,
Mm.
I just turned the pages.
Mhm.
wanting to see both how she was going to tell the story and then the story itself. So those are, I mean, I've got a lot I could recommend here. Everybody, don't forget, I just finished, sorry, I've got books everywhere, but also just finished the summer book.
The
But this
summer
was
book.
written in the early 70s, but it's, I believe they're making a movie out of it soon. It is a grandmother and her granddaughter on an island in Scandinavia in the summer. It is odd. It is moving. And it's just the story of how they spend their days.
Okay.
I will
Well,
stop
that
there.
should be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for those
Oh,
recommendations, and thank you so much for
absolutely.
your book.
Alva, it was so
Seriously.
lovely to talk to you, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of this conversation. And I appreciate you choosing this book because there are a lot of books out there, and I'm I'm very aware that that it is a special thing to be selected for something like this. So thank you.
So for anybody that right now that just wants to decompose right now, this is a fast read, and it will definitely um it's a lovely book to read right now. So I want to thank
Thank
you,
you.
Kim, again for joining us this
Yeah.
afternoon, and make sure and check her out. Are you on social media, Kim?
I am. I'm on Instagram.
Okay,
So
check
I
her
don't know
out
what my
on
handle is. It's Kim
Instagram.
Fay, author of books or something. Yeah.
Perfect. Check
Yeah.
her out on her Instagram page. Check out her website. Make
Thank
sure
you.
and go and purchase this book. It's available where all books are. Uh, her
Yeah.
book is available anywhere books are sold. But we always encourage people to, maybe the library has it, or
Mhm.
purchase from independent bookshops.
Thank
We
you.
are
Thank
very
you. Thank you. The second novel is actually about an independent bookshop. I mean, and that's one of the, I was an independent bookseller for years. So if you can support your independent booksellers, they are the heart and soul of our community and your
absolutely,
libraries. I mean, I please check it out from the library.
yes.
Because the
It's
more you check
available.
out books
Not
from the
available at the
library,
library.
yeah, the
Yes.
more you're supporting your library, and we need our libraries.
And
So
if you don't have an independent bookshop in your area, we always recommend Bookshop because they support independent
yeah,
bookshops. So
they do.
thank you
Oh,
again, everyone, for watching.
well,
And thank you
thank you
again,
so much
Kim.
for listening today.
Absolutely. And we'll see
All right.
everyone at the next one. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.